Ladies, do you want to know how to increase your accuracy on wooded disc golf courses? Well, I'm going to share with you what has helped me in the last 13 years of playing disc golf. So stay tuned. So the first tip is disc selection. So before you think about teeing off, you always want to make sure you have the proper disc in your hand. So you don't want to be throwing strikes or race. These are very high-speed drivers, and as a beginner lady in disc golf, you want to avoid these at all costs. Especially on wooded holes like this. It's quite narrow. You really don't want to be throwing a disc that's like higher speed than a speed 6. This strike is a speed 13, so you're not going to have enough glide on this to keep it in the air long enough for it to go straight. You want to ditch the high-speed drivers for now and focus on mid-ranges and up to fairway drivers. Now I'm going to throw the origin and show you guys the glide of this thing, and it's not going to dump like a high-speed driver would. You see how the origin did not dump hard left like a high-speed driver would. So I highly recommend that you ladies just go out there and practice with those understable mid-ranges and putters as well. Stick with those, and then you can work your way up to high-speed drivers eventually. So the next tip is proper footing in disc golf. Before I throw, I always think about the footing that I have on the tee pad beforehand. For a hole like this, I'm going to be having an X step, and the basket is straight with me, so I'm not going to be here because there's trees right here, and so if I throw and my footing is right here, I have a chance of hitting that tree line right there. So this right here, this side of the tee pad is not good. You do not want to throw from there. And also this side here with the tree line, you have a chance of hitting those trees as well. So you don't want your footing over here. You have a chance of early release point, and we don't want that. You'll want to be in the center of the tee pad since the basket is straight down the middle. Still stayed on the fairway, and it didn't have a hard dump. So being right in the middle for this shot is perfect. For this shot, I would say that a run-up or a standstill would do just fine. Either one would work. For me, I'm going to do a run-up because I feel like there's a big enough of an opening to get through. Now, a standstill would work just as well because it's short enough to reach the pin, depending on who you are. And for the footing, I would have my footing right here on the right side, because since the basket is on the left side, I don't want to be standing here because then I'm going to be throwing right at these trees here. So you could either, standing in the middle, you still have a chance of hitting these trees as well. So I think it's recommended that you have your foot positioning here off the tee. So then you have this whole opening right here to work with. You have this big gap, and that's going to be your best foot positioning off of the tee pad right here. The way I'm going to release the origin is like an exaggerated hyzer. So it'll like flip up and then fade a little, because if I hold it on that flat line, it's going to go to the right. That was a little too far, but you get the idea. I had a great opening right here to get to the basket. So this hole, it's down there to the left. It's the yellow basket. And I'm going to be throwing my origin because I want that gradual glide. And I don't want to throw something that's like too high speed because it's going to come out of that and go too far left. And it's very tightly wooded on this hole. So I just want to throw something that's going to glide and not have too much of a fade. And as far as feet positioning on the tee pad, I don't want to be standing over here because obviously I have trees in the way, so that's a no-go. And then even in the center, there's a tree right in my way, so I'm not going to release right here. My best option on this hole is to stand right here because then you have an opening. It's the bigger opening right here to get to the basket. I'm not going to have an X-step because it's too tightly wooded here, and I feel like with a run up there's too many moving parts on a hole like this, so I'd rather keep it nice and slow and controlled. So I'm going to throw a standstill and hold it on this line. I'm going to get into athletic stance and just try to get it down there. Ooh. That was a bit far past the basket, but like that was a good positioning of my hips and my feet. Another tip I want to share with you guys has to do with grip. So depending on the hole, I'll either have my fingers like this, stacked like this, or I'll have my index finger on the edge like this, and then my pinky is out like this, and then these two fingers are kind of stacked. And by doing this, it allows me to have more control of the disc. For me, it just helps like guide the disc better. And I feel like, especially on a hole like this where it's super narrow, it's a very narrow gap, I feel like holding it like this, I'm just gonna grip lock it, especially because it's a mid-range and it's a thicker rim. As for foot positioning off the tee pad, I feel better doing a standstill versus a run up because, like I said before, there's so many trees right here that if I do an X step here, I feel like I'm going to grip lock it, and there's just too many moving parts involved on a hole like this. So I would rather just take it nice and easy, do a standstill, keep it nice and controlled. So to recap, I'm going to hold the disc like this with my index finger. And this may not work for you, but like I said, this works extremely well for me on tight, narrow, wooded gaps like this. And I'm gonna do a standstill, make sure I'm like in an athletic stance, and I'm just gonna have my disc, my origin, released on a slight hyzer and just keep it nice and slow. Come on. Woo! Well, and it ended up being in the opening, and yes, I did hit a tree, but did you see how straight that went? And that was just with a standstill, nice and controlled, and went straight down the center. So to recap, make sure you choose the proper disc selection. So make sure you don't throw those high-speed, overstable drivers, and focus on the putters, mids, and up to fairway drivers. For the second tip, you have to determine whether or not you're going to throw a standstill or an X step. And for me, when it's a tight wooded gap, I'm going to be throwing more than likely my standstill. So make sure you determine that and see which one is most suitable depending on the hole. And the third tip has to do with proper footing off the tee pad. So make sure everything is aligned as it should, and that will give you the best outcome. And for all my lady disc golfers out there, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got a ton of value out of this. If you're struggling to throw flat, check out this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.